All right, hey guys, Josh Beecraft here, another 2mm shift, and today we are going to talk about personal development, most specifically self-awareness. And I'm going to give you a really cool trick that you can do that's been really helpful to me over the years, and there's lots of these tricks out there. But before I tell you what it is, I want to give you a little bit of, it's not really a disclaimer, but a little bit of awareness on what can happen when you use these kind of tricks, because there is a way to use them effectively, and there's a way to use them ineffectively, or even kind of go backwards, for lack of a better word, right? So, imagine if you have a wrench and you try to put in a screw with it, right? It's the wrong tool for the job. You're working in the backwards direction of where you're trying to go. So there is a way to use these tools wrong, and I want to talk about that first. The other thing I want to say is that this isn't meant to stand in the way of any professional advice or contend with that or compete with that. It's simply a tool you can put in your toolbox, and for many, many things, it's going to work great. Other things, you're probably going to try it and you're going to go, I don't know if that really did what I hoped it would do. That's why it's just a tool. If you find out it's not the right tool for the job, part of personal development is finding out what is, right? Now, specifically what I want to talk about here is how we create some more self-awareness. And there's a number of ways to do it, but one of the things you can risk getting yourself into and really working backwards is what's called analysis paralysis. When we start to look at things inside of ourselves, it can be super interesting. And for me, I got obsessed with this 20 plus years ago. And it took me on a ride where I learned a lot about myself, about psychology, about all sorts of things. But it kept me stuck in a loop of not actually progressing into those things that I learned. I had the knowledge, but I didn't have the wisdom because I wasn't able to apply it properly because I was stuck in analysis, right? So that's the risk that you can have, and you have to know when you're doing that. And the way you know when you're doing it is when you kind of just continually fall back into the habit of analyzing. The goal of what I'm about to show you is to try to get a very high level of self-awareness in a very focused way around a particular problem, issue, pattern, topic, whatever it is. And then once you have that insight, it allows you to take different actions, right? And that's how you know you're doing it right, is if you take different actions afterwards. If you keep going back and thinking about it, you do that too much, you're actually going to go backwards. And I'll give you just an interesting sense of things. When you're in your head and you're thinking through things like in a meditation or maybe a hypnosis or even just normal like processing mentally, you're actually more disconnected from the physical world than you would be if you were taking actions based on those things. And if you just think of it in terms of the amount of connection you have to the physical versus the non-physical, or the mental in this case, even spiritual, there has to be a balance of those things. And if you go too far into one, you lose the connection in the other. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? If you're in a state of depression, a lot of times you're very disconnected from the physical world. And one of the greatest cures for depression, or at least, I don't want to say cure, but like one of the greatest advantages you can have if you're in a state of depression is to reconnect with the physical world, particularly with activity. Go get your heart rate up. Go do some exercises, jumping jacks, like go for a run, go for a walk, move your body, because as you connect more to the physical, you instantly lower the intensity of the depression, right? So I want you to think about that in that terms when we think of analysis paralysis, okay? So that's one, that's foundational. Two, here's the actual methodology, and this is so simple. That's why I included it as a 2mm shift, because it doesn't need a lot of extra context, right? This is something I think I either first heard it from Brendon Burchard or Dean Graziosi. I'm not sure which one. I think both of them talk about it. I know for sure Dean does, so it could have been there. You could probably Google a video on what Dean talks about here. It's not the first time I understood the concept. It's the first time I heard it framed the way that I'm about to frame it to you. And what he called it was the 7 whys. So let's say that you're in a pattern where, there's some common patterns. I'm thinking of people that I'm coaching right now in my life. And there's one person that keeps finding themselves in these overdramatic situations, right? Everybody that they connect with, drama sparks up, and like somehow they have a problem with it or whatnot. There's this endless loop of this stuff happening, right? So let's say you have a pattern like that. Maybe that pattern is around money. Maybe it's around a relationship. Maybe it's around your health. Maybe it's around something, a goal that you keep failing to achieve and you don't know why. This 7 whys process will help you suss that out. And here's how simple it is. You can either do this with yourself, Or what can be really helpful is to have somebody else ask you these questions. And when you see how easy it is, you're going to be like, it's kind of funny to think of somebody asking, getting somebody to ask you those questions and go through it with you. But that can be a really powerful way because somebody else in the room has a different psychology than it's just you with you, right? All you're going to do is you're going to say, man, I keep having this pattern in my life. Why do I think that is? And something's going to bubble to the surface. So your mind is going to try to fill in some kind of answer. And then you're going to go, great. Well, why is that? Right? You're going to play the 2-year-old game, right? Why? Why is that? Why? How come? Right? And you're going to do that. Dean Graziosi talks about doing it 7 layers deep. So, I'll just give an example. This isn't necessarily true, but I want you to just be able to think through how this works. Let's say that I have a pattern around, let's say money in this case. Like I keep failing to make 6 figures a year. I put in all the effort, I've got the training, I've got the knowledge, I feel like I'm doing all the right stuff, but I just never get there. Why do I think that is? Well, man, maybe what comes to mind is that I've had so many experiences with people that have money that are negative that I don't want to be like those people. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, why do you think you feel that way? Man, I don't know. I guess, I remember an old memory of like my mom saying that people with money often aren't very nice or something like that, right? And you go, huh. Well, why do you think you're still doing that? I guess it's because, I've had these experiences, but really I think I'm afraid of being somebody that nobody would like, right? And you go, okay, great. Why would you be afraid of that? Well, because if I'm afraid of being somebody that nobody would like, how can I know that I'm okay in the world? How can I fit in? How can I know anything? Okay, well, why do you feel like you need to fit in? Well, maybe that's a natural thing, but I guess, if I think back as a child, there was times where I didn't fit in and it felt really terrible and I didn't understand how come, maybe somebody picked on me, maybe there was a circumstance where, I was constantly shoved aside and felt like a burden or whatever. Great, well, why do you think that's still bothering you today? I don't know. So as you go through this, you're going to go through this series of realizations. Your mind is going to fill in the gaps. But as you go down this path of why, and you allow yourself to be honest with yourself. This is fundamental. You have to be honest with yourself as best you can, right? Your mind's going to pull things up, and sometimes it might not make sense. You go like, why am I thinking about my brother right now? My brother doesn't have anything to do with it. But you just continue the why process. And there's times where you go, I don't know what I should do now because I don't know why. Go, great. What if you did know why? What would you think it would be, right? And if you can't answer the why or you get stuck somewhere, you go, why do you think it is that you're struggling to find that answer, right? So it's always a why back to it, and you keep going through that process, and it's going to give you clarity and insight in the form of knowledge as to why this pattern might exist at an emotional, mental pattern, right? And as you have that knowledge, it gives you the insight to have the wisdom to take different actions, to recognize it when it's happening, to decide to do something different when you see it come up. Oh, you know what? I might be going into this pattern again because I'm starting to feel this familiar feeling. And now that I have some awareness, I wonder if this is me triggering this thing. What if instead of focusing on this right now, I go focus on something totally different? Right? What if I go connect back with the physical with some activity? Or what if I go connect with some people, let's say that it is that you feel exiled in some way. What if I go connect with some people at a social level and feel included? Right? I'm not saying that's the solution. I'm not saying that'll solve the whole problem, but I'm saying it gives you the leverage to make different decisions that can create different habits, that create new patterns that serve you instead of ones that no longer serve you. They did at one point. They were helpful at one point. That's why you made the decision, whether you realized you did or not, was to help you in some way. They just no longer help in this current situation, right? So this 7 whys is one tool that you can have in your toolbox to uncover these kind of emotional patterns and gain greater levels of self-awareness, which leads to higher levels of personal development. So that's what I've got for you today. That's the 2 millimeter shift. Go through that exercise with yourself if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're evaluating what steps you should take next. Any of those kind of things, this process can give you deeper insights. And if you want to, go to YouTube and Google the 7 whys, and there'll be another explanation of it there. If I can find the video, I'll put it in a link down below, that sort of stuff. So I hope you do fantastic. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help you. Like, subscribe, all of those things. We're getting into solid footing into 2025. And 2mm shift is going to be a dominant focus for me this year. So there's lots more of this stuff to come. I look forward to seeing you there. We'll talk to you soon.